Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is hautemesstom, and thank you so much for clicking on this declutter. This is part of my larger mid-year declutter series, and I'm going to be releasing it segments by segment over the course of however long it takes me to get through it. And then after I post all the segments, there will be one mega cut, super long video, because I know a lot of people like to unwind and watch these and relax. And just so you know, if you are going to watch any of these, there's no spikes in volumes. And if I do play music, it's going to be very chill and really low volume so that it's not jarring as you watch it, because I don't want you to be jarred if you were starting to fall asleep and were watching my video. If you want to just jump into the declutter, feel free to click through down below. There's going to be timestamps. I do want to give you some context about what my goals were in this declutter. I am a content creator that sometimes gets PR, and I sometimes buy things for review. And what that means is that I have more makeup coming through my house at any given time. And this is a part-time gig for me. Like, the PR has just been more and more recently. And I do like to test things. I like to try new things. And I like to pass that information on to people who watch my channel. But what it means is, for the stuff that I'm not actively reviewing, is that I don't get to it as much. And what my goal is in this declutter is to really be serious about what I'm actually using and what I will use in my free time off of camera or when I'm not testing things. So this is a pretty thorough and large declutter. Like, I'm getting rid of a lot of makeup through it. It doesn't happen in every one of the segments, but in most of the segments, there's a lot of makeup being decluttered in the series. I don't want you to ever feel that your makeup collection is too small or your makeup collection is too large. We're all allowed to navigate the beauty space as we see fit. But my personal belief, my personal opinion is that I think that we should be consuming makeup products, buying makeup products with the intent that they are going to be really, really good products that we are going to want to use all the way up, that we're going to love as long as we can, whether or not we get to it enough to use it before it either goes off or we get bored of it. I think that we shouldn't be buying makeup with the idea or the feeling that we are gonna do a declutter later. It's a little bit different for me as a content creator, but like, if I wasn't a content creator, that would be how I would want to buy makeup. Like, that would be my vision for it. And that's not to say I'm not going to ever buy and keep makeup in the future. It's not to say that whenever PR comes through that I might not keep some of it because it's really high quality, but I'm just doing this all with the understanding that my personal makeup collection, the stuff that I consider to be mine, the permanent collection, is something that I need to keep a little bit smaller than I have in the past. This isn't to tell you that you need to declutter your makeup collection. Just know that going through that is the approach I'm coming at this with. It's really important for you, as someone who might not be a content creator who gets PR or has additional money coming in for the sole purpose of reviewing makeup, to view this as something that's a part of this job and not something that you should have to do as a consumer. That's all I wanted to say before we jumped into it. So I hope you enjoy my declutter. These are all of my potted shadows, eyeliners, single shadows that are in their own compact. I also have singles that are in magnetic palettes, but I keep these in a separate drawer. All right, let's start with the smaller of the two categories. These are all of my eyeliners, and if as you can tell, or maybe you can't from where your vantage point is, these are all from Victoria Beckham except for one. Victoria Beckham makes my favorite eyeliner formula, and while I, enjoy testing formulas and such, before I got the Victoria Beckham eyeliners, I really didn't care about eyeliner all that much, but these really work the way I want them to, which is why I'm okay having many of them. But I still try to be selective. She has many more colors than this. So these are the colors that I thought I would use the most, and let's just walk through them. This is the shade Cinnamon, and this was released, I think, either earlier this year or late last year. I think late last year. And it's a really beautiful, warm, shimmering cinnamon color, I guess is the best way to describe it. I think it was pretty apt. Whenever I bought this, I wasn't 100% sure if this would be an eyeliner that I would use a lot, but I actually really like the way it juxtaposes cool toned eyeshadow, and it makes my green eyes pop quite a bit because it has a little bit of that red in it. It's not super red, but it has just enough red in it to make my green eyes really pop. So I really am a big fan of that shade. Then I think this one is my most used, if not my second most used. It's the shade Cocoa, which is just a deep matte espresso brown. And I mean, I don't play around with eyeliner too much, so something like this comes in real handy. And then this is either my most or second most used eyeliner from Victoria Beckham. It's the shade Ash, which is this really beautiful deep gray, and it is gray, which oftentimes whenever you find a gray, or if you're looking for a gray, it doesn't end up actually being a gray. It normally blends out into like a gray green color, but this one is just a very true neutral gray. That one I'm gonna keep. And then I bought this when I bought Cinnamon. This is just the black eyeliner. It's not the most black eyeliner, but it is a neutral black. And I don't really need anything like super, super black. Like, I'm not really looking for that whenever it comes to my eyeliner. This is dark enough for me, and I really like it. And then I actually think I'm going to declutter this one. This is the sequin green shade, so it's a green sparkly liner. One of my friends recently said that she wanted to get into like colorful eyeliner, but not too colorful, and I think that she'll really like this. And I like this sequin formula. I just don't reach for this very often. I stick with more like of a neutral kind of leaning eyeliner. I don't often opt for even this, even though it's not super colorful. So I think it'll make more sense for me to pass this on to my friend. Then this is from Kulfi. It is the Tiger Queen eyeliner from them. And I've had this for quite a while. I really love the color of it. I also really like this formula. It's pretty similar, I think, to the Victoria Beckham, but it comes in like this fine liner packaging. It does do this thing where the whole top part pops off a lot on me, but that doesn't really bother me too much. And there is something to be said to having the fine liner. I would say this is definitely, as well with Sequin Green, a liner that I use the least, but I think this color is so special. This like burnt terracotta color is so pretty. And again, because it has like that orangey redness in it, it looks really great with my green eyes. I don't know that I'll ever finish this, but I like having it on hand. And then I do have one gel eyeliner from Blink. I'm not going to swatch this. I occasionally use this. I don't normally use it on camera or for anything, but I do often use it whenever I'm like going out at night. It's a pretty good gel liner. I have 3 eyeshadow sticks. I have 2 from Victoria Beckham, and I have 1 from Laura Mercier. This one's from Laura Mercier. It's the shade Brick. And it is also like a terracotta brown. I wouldn't say that it's really a brick color. I feel like it's more brown than it has like the red in it. And I guess I think of red more when I think of brick tones. But I think I have seen bricks this color. And it's a really good formula. I feel like it holds up really well on my eyes. I mostly use this like on the outer corner of my eyes and blend it out. I don't normally put this all over the lid, but I really like this shade. I've used it less than I use the Victoria Beckham ones, but I still find value in it and I still like to pull it out. Then I have 2 from Victoria Beckham. This is the shade Pecan, and it is a more of a neutral brown shade. It still has some warmth in it. And I also have Trench from Victoria Beckham. I really like these Victoria Beckham eyewears. They hold up very, very well on my lids. And it's kind of impressive because normally cream shadows don't really have the best longevity on me, but these play really well together. And if I'm using one of like these single shadows, oftentimes I will blend out with these 2 and then just put that on my lids. It's like very, very often what I'm doing when it comes to my eye looks these days. Let's start with my 4 eyeshadows from Chantecaille. And the funny story about these is I bought one and then I really liked it, and then I bought 3 more and I liked the other 3 more. So the first one I purchased was actually the Zebra shade, which is a rose gold. So that's what it looks like. It is really, really gorgeous. And I like how sparkly and elegant these are. These aren't going to be for everyone. They're really super expensive for what they are, but I really like the elegant quality of them. Now that I have some more shades, this one's definitely my least favorite. This is the shade Pangolin, and they describe this one as a dusty lilac, which I just think is a much more interesting shade than Zebra. And I like more cool tones, so that really more aligns with how I'm doing my makeup these days. So I really like that one. I'm gonna keep that one. But Zebra, I'm a little bit on the fence about keeping. This one is Rhino, and it is an olive green. But I would still say that this is like more of like a taupey shade. I feel like Zebra is the least sparkly of the Chantecaille shadows that I own. And I would say like Rhino has some of the most sparkles in it. And I do love olive green as an eyeshadow color, so I'm going to keep that one. And then I also have the Elephant shade, which is a taupe. A shimmering taupe gray. That's what they say. Sometimes these are really hard to open and other times they're not. I also feel like this taupe color has some green in it. Like there's still the essence of green. But like I said, the sparkles in the lower three from Zebra are just much more apparent. And I do like something a little bit more sparkly. So I actually think I'm going to declutter Zebra because also this kind of tone is something that I'm not wearing very often. And like something more smoky like these three shades is something I'm definitely much more interested in. Then I have one of Charlotte Tilbury's Hypnotizing Pop Shots. This is in the shade Smoky Quartz. And this is much more cool toned of a taupe versus the one from Chantecaille. And I really, really love this little guy. I feel like it's been a constant part of my collection for, well, I mean, really since I got it. And you can tell based on how much dent there is, I have used this quite a bit. So I'm going to keep this because I mean, I just adore it. Then I have two of Victoria Beckham's lid lusters. The first one I ever purchased is the shade Mink. And of the two, it remains my favorite. And guess what? It's a sparkly taupe, but it has more depth than Smoky Quartz. And I also feel like it has some of like warm undertones in it. It's certainly not just a straight taupe. And like, even though these are all described as taupey shades, they're like very, very different. I mean, they probably won't read as different on the eye as like they read to me whenever you swatch them next to each other. But that's the kind of eyeshadow that I really gravitate towards. So I think having some nuanced versions of that is okay. I also have the shade Onyx, which I think they discontinued, which was this sooty, shiny, like black. I would say maybe more charcoal. And it is also really pretty. I definitely kind of like Zebra. It's like the one I use less, but I do like a black smoky eye, and I don't do them often, but what Onyx does for me is really simplifies it because it's like, basically I just put a liner down and then I smudge it out with this, and then that's like the perfect smoky eye. So I definitely want to keep this. Does not have the highest use value of all of my single potted shadows, but it does the thing that it does very specifically very well. And it is just an impressive formula. I really love the lid lusters. I have two of the Soufflé eyeshadows from Surratt. My favorite of the two. There's always a favorite. Whenever you have more than one of the same formula, there's always going to be a favorite. This is Pluie Mauve. It's a purple that has green sparkle in it. This formula is really, really, really weird. And I really wasn't sure after I initially got these in PR, like, how much I would use them, but it turns out quite a bit. They are really sheer, and I think that's going to be some people's gig, and it's not going to be others people's gig, but you can definitely layer them up to get higher pigment out of them. But I normally keep them pretty sheer. I normally like to like layer other sheer sparkly things on top to kind of give myself like a very dimensional sparkly shadow situation. So I really like that one. I also have Nuage d'Argent, which it's another taupe, and I think that this one has green sparkles in it. I definitely use this one less than I use Pluie Mauve. And if I'm going to reach for a taupe, it's probably going to be like some of the ones up here versus this one. So now I'm left to wonder, do I think it's worth me keeping this one? I do wear it occasionally, but it doesn't excite me like a lot of the other colors here. So I think I'm okay. I'm going to pass this one along. But I really like this formula of eyeshadow for whatever reason, even though it's like a really weird formula, it works really well on my oily eyelids. That has not been the case for all of my friends with oily eyelids, by the way. What I've been learning recently is like saying generally that you have oily eyelids doesn't mean you have the same oily eyelids as everyone else. I have this pigment from Makeup Forever. This is the Granny White pigment. I'll tell you the number because the Starlit Diamond Powder in 106. And this is a thing that I don't reach for very often, but I'm always pleased to have it around. This is something that could get cut later whenever I start swatching my single eyeshadows, because I feel like I have some pressed shadows that do something very similar to this. For right now, I think it's safe, but if I'm swatching my other eyeshadows and I feel like something's really close to it, I might pull this back out there's a possibility that that could go. This is from Half Magic. This is one of their glitter pills, and this is the shade Microcosm. This is just like a holographic silver glitter. And this came into my life this year. Literally, I said in a video, I would really love to have a glitter liner, and then my friend Andromeda sent this my way. I will say the brush is getting weird. Like, and I haven't used it that much. I have used it, you know, more than I think I thought I was going to, but the brush doesn't seem to be holding up very well. I don't know if it's because it's hitting the stopper as I put it in and it's separating the bristles, but I have found that it's not as fine pointed as it once was, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I still really like that. And then I have these two neon liquid shadows from Danessa Myricks. They don't make these anymore. They serve their purpose. I will say I'm not going to buy any more Danessa Myricks stuff. And if anyone knows of like liquid neon, and I mean liquid, I don't want to have to add water myself. I want pre-mixed like liquid neon liners that are going to glow in black light. Let me know. I'm not so in a rush to get rid of these. In fact, like I definitely just mostly use the pink one, but I do keep the orange one because every now and then I feel so inclined. But I would definitely love to have a more robust like neon collection because I do like the effect of a neon, because I know I often reach for like taupey kind of neutral shades, but sometimes it is fun to do like an inner corner, like a bright situation over top of all of that taupe. So I'm going to hold on to these. So I kept 5 eyeliners and I decluttered 1. I had 4 Chanticais. I kept 3 and I'm decluttering 1. And this is the only real single shadow I'm getting rid of, other than the one from Surratt, which I'm keeping 1 and I'm decluttering 1. And here's everything I'm keeping in that category. Didn't declutter much, but I wasn't expecting to, because these are the things that whenever I do an eye look, these are what I'm reaching for the most right now over eyeshadow palettes. So it makes sense to me that this category has kind of just like maintained its size. I don't know why I didn't pull these out. These literally live in the same container that all of this stuff lives in, and yet didn't pull them out for the last part. And I also have this Half Magic one, which is a little easier for me to lose in the sauce. I have 5 eyeshadows from HARSHEST, and these are all the sparkly shadows that they have that are like more sparkly than their other ones. They have some other like satin shimmer shades, but these are the ones that have that good in it. I think I bought 3 of these and 2 of these were in PR, so I'm not sure which ones are which anymore. But Fractal Freesia was the first one I bought, and Lunar Lightwave would be like the next shade that would be closest to it. They are very different though. And then this is Starlight Symphony, and then this is Astral Atmosphere. So a bunch of different undertones of sparkle. Some of them have more of a base pigment than others. I do prefer the ones that are a little more sheer with just mostly glitter, but that's just because I like to use them as toppers. And you can tell because like they're the most dirty on top. And then the last one I have is Crystal Constellation, which is definitely like the one that has the most base pigment. But if I were to rank them, I think I like Lunar Lightwave more than I like Fractal Freesia, but I love them both. And then Crystal Constellation would be like my next favorite, which leads me to some thinking. The Ready undertone of Astral Atmosphere isn't my fave. I will say I do reach for these all regularly. It's not like a chore for me to use them. It's like they're all kind of in my mind palettes, and I do use Astral Atmosphere too. I think I'm going to keep all my Phytosurgeon sparkly shades. I just really love them. And then this one, I think I'm going to declutter. This is the Half Magic Beauty Glitter Puck, which I think is a really gorgeous bit of makeup. It's this beautiful baby pink foily shimmer. The thing I have an issue with is just how big this is and how much space it takes up. For it, to me, and my use value of it is as an eyeshadow. And well, I think that it's really pretty. It's like this, has this pink base and it has some I would say like warmer sparkles in it. It's really pretty. I really like it. But I have so many other sparkly duochrome shades that probably can do exactly what this can do, and they like are magnetic, and I would like be able to use them while traveling and such. And like I wouldn't want to carry this around traveling. It's just so huge. And it is really pretty, but I think someone else will love it more than me. Here are all of my eyeshadow palettes. I want to make the most damage in this. I do want to be a little bit cutthroat when I'm making the decisions with palettes today. I think there are going to be some big swings. I think the smart thing to do would be to pull out the palettes that are the ones I use the most first. I'm going to keep the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. I have some good dents going in here, and it's my favorite palette to take me whenever I go anywhere. And it speaks to the part of my brain that's really into more neutral looks right now. The Natasha Denona Yucca palette. If you watch my channel, you basically know that I have, oh wow, hello chest. You know that I have already made the decision to declutter this palette. The reason is I never reach for it. It's a good palette, but it's not a good palette for me anymore. I did a whole video on this. If I have the wherewithal to link it in the cards, I will link it in the cards, but there's a whole video I talk about reflecting on this purchase 1 year later. And I really love these shimmers, but I just am not reaching for these kinds of green tones anymore. But I really like this palette. I think I can give it to a friend and they can love it more than I ever will. This is the Hindash Monochromance palette. I'm going to keep it. I broke it. I did that, but that was because I tried to like twist it all the way around, and that's just on me. These are my favorite matte eyeshadows to work with. I really love Hindash's formula. I'm just waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen with the brand. I feel like they've just been really quiet for some time, and I'm ready to hear some news from them because I really love what they do over there, and I love these gradient palettes. I like this one because it has a little bit of color, but also has those neutrals, and it makes it really easy to make some quick, custom, easy blends of some brighter colors to play with maybe some brighter shimmers on top. I really love it. Since I love that formula so much, I also have the Beautopsy palette, which I bought first, actually. And I love it just as much. This is something that I take on me when I go on vacation because basically we have contour, blush, bronzer, and eyeshadow covered right in the one palette as opposed to taking singles of everything. Another one that I know I'm going to keep is the Charlotte Tilbury Beautyverse palette, which is an unpopular opinion, I know, but I happen to really enjoy this palette. I think the mattes on here are very, very good. Like, I really like working with them. If I'm not picking out the Victoria Beckham eyewears, I will pull this palette out just for this. And I also really like the shimmers, which was kind of the biggest complaint I feel like a lot of other people had with this palette. My only problem with it, I don't really care for the silver, and this pink shade is not as beautifully formulated as the brown shades on top. But I pull this out quite regularly. This is my custom Pat McGrath palette. If you didn't know, I destroyed a bunch of my Pat McGrath palettes and made a palette of special shades only, and I adore it. I definitely use this palette more than I would have if these just were regular palettes still, but I still don't think I use it the most, but I made this and I feel really attached to it. I mean, I'm sure that someone would love to take it off my hands too because I did all the work for them, but I'm hoping that when I declutter more eyeshadows, which I'm intending on doing, that this feels like it lives in the front of my brain a little bit more. This is Pat McGrath's Divine Rose 1 eyeshadow palette, and guess what? I really like this palette. I really do. It's gorgeous. It's really easy to use. However, even now that I only have one intact Pat McGrath palette, it's still not something I reach for. And it's not because it's boring colors. These are kind of the colors that I've been very into right now. The only shades I really care for in this palette are this one right here. And I like this special shade. And I am fairly certain that this special shade was in one of the other palettes, which I depotted into my own personal Pat McGrath palette. This shade is pretty special, but it's not something I can't find elsewhere, even in my collection. So I am good to part ways with this. And that means that I will have no Mothership palettes from Pat McGrath that aren't messed up. I will say this. On my wish list right now is another Pat McGrath Mothership, one that I think suits my style a little bit more. And I'm considering buying it to maybe like give Pat McGrath one last chance, but you know me, I'll wait for a sale if I do decide to do that. It won't be until next year if I decide to do that. But you know what? It's summertime. I feel like we're around the time where Pat McGrath usually releases the Mothership of the year. This is from LH Cosmetics. This is the Aim Higher palette. I really fell in love with LH Cosmetics eyeshadow formula last year, and I really, really enjoy playing with this eyeshadow palette. However, as you can see here, the shimmers in here are very reminiscent of the taupes that I swatched in my singles collection. If I'm going to reach in here to pull from these mattes, I'm going to look in the Hindash palette or in my Viseart palette for something like this. I would love LH Cosmetics released something a little more utilitarian feeling to me. Maybe I would buy that, but because like it is really one of the best eyeshadow formulas I've ever tried. I really, really like playing with it, but since I was like kind of testing it out, I haven't really pulled it out, and that's okay because even though it is that cool toned color story, I still don't reach for it. I just reach for other things. And I would rather have someone else love it and actually use it as opposed to me just holding on to it because I like to use it sometimes. That's that decision. This is the Izumaya Industrial 1 palette. I will be very honest with you. I've only used this palette a couple of times this year. My relationship with it is complicated because I do actually really love this palette. I still really feel like the exciting feelings that I did whenever I first heard of Izumaya and that brand. Like I'm really fond of it. I haven't reached for it in a really long time. It's something that I still look at and I'm inspired by, whereas the Yucca palette I'm no longer inspired by. And I do love those greens in some formats, and I love the greens in here. And I'm hoping, again, with less eyeshadows overwhelming me, that this will become something that I use a little bit more. This is more of like a fantasy keep. I also feel like my feelings on the brand have changed a lot since I initially talked about it and reviewed it. Like I thought they were this really cool up and coming brand and that they were going to really push the limits, and I feel like they did that once. And then I felt let down by them every other time since then. So I'm going to keep this one. I just don't know that I'm ready to say goodbye to this one yet. This is the Viseart Grand Pro 1X. Some of these shades are missing. I've made some BYO palettes recently and I took these out and I need to put them back in because it's going to get bananas in here really soon whenever it comes to single shadows. So I need to make sure these ones come back. But very utilitarian. I can push out the shadows. I think it's a really great set of like some color, some neutrals, warm leaning, cool leaning, kind of choose your own adventure thing. And I really like that. And this could be argued that I have some overlap with the Hindash palettes in this, but for some reason, I never feel like I can have enough neutral mattes. Like I'm going to find use for them. And also this allows me to build my own palettes for when I do decide to like travel or go overnight somewhere, or just to like want to build my own palette. This comes in handy. This is the Natasha Denona Gold palette, and I still have very warm feelings towards this palette, so I don't feel inclined to declutter it. And I also feel now that the golden palette has come out and it's kind of like not quite got the best reception, I am happy to have the gold palette, and I have been playing with this a little bit more. And I actually really just love this palette. I really do. And you know, it is mostly like those neutrals with some of this, you know, tarnished green, which I really like. Surratt shadows. So I think these are really beautiful eyeshadows, but the longevity on my eyes is very bad. They really fade pretty quickly. They normally start creasing on my lids with all of the help that I could possibly give it, and they will still crease up on my lid pretty quickly. I love them, and I feel Surratt often sends PR, and I'm very gracious for that. And if I could, I probably would keep these two shades, but I think I could give this palette to someone and they would really enjoy it. And it's not like I don't have beautiful things like this elsewhere in my collection. They're special shades, but they're not, you know, something that I really need to hold to. I stand by that these are worth the money if you're looking for something very easy, very sheer, very easy to blend. Like it is all of those things if it lasts on your eyelids. But for me, it just don't last on my lids. And it's not to say I wouldn't try some Surratt single shadows again in the future, but I think for right now, I think it's okay to pass on them. They're not the perfect shades for me. They're just not the perfect formula for my eyes. I love the formula. If I could get better longevity out of them, I would love them so much more. I have two Olivia Palermo palettes, and I really like these as like an aesthetic thing. These are super heavy, and I do like the looks that I get from both of these. Again, I feel like I've been a little bit lost in the sauce with eyeshadows. These eyeshadows aren't my favorite eyeshadow formula either, but you know, see, we have this beautiful taupey shade in this palette, which of course I live for. And I certainly feel like I reach in this one a little bit more, but I do really like these purples, and I also like this sparkly shade. Her sparkly shades are really gorgeous. I really enjoy putting them on my eye. I'm a little bit tempted to keep one, but not both. I want to see myself choosing these more, but I also feel like right now I have been testing a lot of eyeshadow palettes recently, which is probably why some of my eyeshadow palettes have also been neglected. This colorway was Au Naturel, by the way, and then this colorway was Soiree. I just love them. They're so luxe. I am traveling later in the year, and this would be so like cool to be able to pull out and do my makeup with. I think I'm gonna keep both of those for now. They're a little bit in danger for maybe the next declutter, but I'm hoping to really streamline my eyeshadow situation again. I'm keeping this more for sentimental purposes because Annette was kind enough to get me this PR for her collection, the Mighty Monsters collection, but also Tina and Judy's collections. And I just actually used this on camera the other day, and it was really nice. And it's nice to have something like this to not feel like an entire fuddy-duddy, because I feel like my taste in eyeshadow is just very boring right now. And not boring, I don't even mean that in a bad way. It's just I feel like that's going to be the adjective most people would use to describe my eyeshadow, my preferred eyeshadows right now. So I am going to keep that, but this is not something I'm entirely concerned about getting a lot of use value in, but I do use it from time to time, so it's worth just keeping in my eyeshadow drawer. I have a couple eyeshadow palettes that I just keep for the LOLs and the memories, and one day this probably will find itself with those eyeshadow palettes, but as of now, it's safe in my collection. Here are all the eyeshadow palettes I'm keeping. I'm keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That still feels like a lot, but these ones are more utilitarian and kind of exist as one thing, and then these are also kind of cataloged as one thing. Feels like a lot. I feel like I probably, in theory, should put one of the Olivia Palermo palettes in like the Purgatory box, see if I ever pull it out. So I think I might do that because I don't want to get rid of this yet. I don't feel comfortable doing that, but I am going to move Soiree, which is the more purpley one, into Purgatory. So that means I'm keeping 11. Still feels like a lot to me, but that is something that I made myself. And I do absolutely use these palettes. And like, I would say that these palettes are more the ones that I kept for like artistic reasons. I was a little bit looser. But I am going to declutter 4 eyeshadow palettes, which I think is maybe the most eyeshadow palettes I've decluttered in a while in one sitting. So that feels substantial, and especially with the size of collection I have, that was a pretty large percentage of the eyeshadow palettes I had. So if I'm keeping 12 technically with the one in Purgatory, I had 16, so that was 25% of my eyeshadow palettes. So this is my secret shame. These are all of my single eyeshadows. Some of these are like depotted Natasha Denona palettes that I liked them better as singles, and some, like I have Cleona shades, I have Lethal shades, I have a lot of single shadows here, and I want to massively reduce what's happening here. I have a lot of beautiful single eyeshadows. However, because I'm overwhelmed by them, I never use them. Like, they don't come to the forefront of my mind, which is whenever you saw those single potted eyeshadows, that's really what I reach for more than I like go into this realm of my makeup collection. But I do want to change that. I just got rid of 25% of my eyeshadow palettes, and I feel like a lot of my eyeshadow palettes will also lend to being partners with some of these shades. And I do want to ask you, people who are watching this video, if you know of any brands that make single compacts for eyeshadows, be it round or square. I'm gonna need both, obviously, because I don't want to turn all of them into that, but I want to be able to rotate some up to that drawer where I keep all of my single potted shadows. These need handled. If I keep any of them, I'm gonna just repot them into regular pans. Even though they're baked shadows, I think that's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna take the L and just try to give that a go. So looking at this, there are a couple shades that I know I want to keep. This will be my declutter palette, so anything you see go in here is something I'm not interested in. And then anything that goes in here, I plan on keeping. And then after I put everything in here, and hopefully all what I keep can fit in here, I will then move them, I will rearrange them however I see fit. Ice Blink from Shine by SD is staying. It's one of my favorite shadows. I talked about this in a previous video, but I also already removed all of the shades that go into my Viseart Grand Pro 1X. I already took those out of here and put them back in that palette, so I didn't have to like deal with that today. I need to rehome everything that's in the Fairy Lights palette, and I think they're all over here somewhere, so I'm just gonna do that really quick. And I'm gonna keep them. I think of these more as singles, and maybe one day I will move them out of this, because there is one shade I don't care for. It's that Cracker shade. It's not my favorite. I'm not a big multi-chrome holochrome, I think that's what we're calling them. Not a big fan of the holochrome. I have some shades in here from Terra Moons, and they're a brand I don't really support anymore, so I already have the shades, so if I want to keep them, I'm going to keep them and use them, but like I'll probably use them more in my free time. So I think another thing that I want to look at right off the bat is things that could dupe the Half Magic glitter puck. So I'm just going to pull out shimmery light pink things. And I'm probably just going to speed through this process because this is already a big chore for me. That's not fun for me. So I'm actually going to allow myself to watch YouTube, and I'll check in periodically to let you know how things are going. So checking in here a little bit, I got rid of 3 from swatching, but it's funny, I have this swatch right here and I don't know what it's from. I don't know where I picked that swatch up from, because I think the only matte pink I swatched was that one. I also have this hawk. I mean, they have a little bit of a different undertone. That one's a little more warmer, but I'm okay getting rid of that one. With these two, they seem pretty similar. This one just seems to have like a little bit of a denser base. I think I'm okay getting rid of that one. Okay. Well, no, it has like a green shift to it and I kind of like it. Maybe I don't mean that. Maybe I'm going to keep that one. You know what? I'm just going to allow myself to kind of go through once, and then if I want to do another pass, I will check in and do another pass. All right, I'm just gonna pop in to do a little check-in. I feel like I'm still keeping a lot, but also we're about to like head into some larger categories. I am trying to like pull things like that are similar vibes that I can like see up top. The hard thing is I have a lot of multi-chromes and those really play with your mind. Like sometimes whenever I reach for them out here, they look like one color and then I bring them over here. I have also decluttered quite a bit, and I'm sure some of you are going to get very scared with the amount of Cleona. Here's the thing. I want to keep only the special Cleona shades, the ones I'm not going to use. I also see myself favoring like the purple shades and having some difficulty being more discerning. But I did go through some gold shades, and that was pretty easy to release most of them into the ether. Like I'm okay with that. So I have been kind of doing it like every time I get sick of swatching a bunch of sparkles, I will focus on the mattes for a second because I have far less single mattes than I have single shimmers. I did have a ping, like just a little of like, oh no, am I doing the right thing whenever I got to some Natasha Denona shades from the larger palettes, the green one and the blue purple one. It's okay. The whole point of this is that I narrow things down. I also was really pleased. I pulled out this shade, and this is something I depotted from one of the 6-pan Pat McGrath palettes from forever ago, and it reminded me a lot of one of the shades from the Divine Rose 1 palette, which I just decluttered that I liked. It also kind of reminds me of a shade from the Divine Rose 2 palette, and it's possible this could be a shade that's in either one of those as well, but I'm really happy that I swatched that because it's like, oh wow, that's a really, really beautiful shade. The other thing is, it's really hard to do this because it's like all of the shades are really beautiful. Like they're all pretty, even if like I don't have intentions of keeping them. They're all still really, really pretty. So it's really difficult to discern what I should keep and what I shouldn't. Like it's getting tough in here. doing another little check-in. Right now, I just kind of have all of the singles I think I'm going to keep like precariously placed on top of one of these big palettes. I actually have already filled this one up with things I'm planning on decluttering, so I pulled this out to add to. I'm working on the mattes now. Mattes are always really hard for me, especially when we start talking about like the neutrals that are happening over here. It's like hard to discern what's different from what I have in palettes, and I really don't want to get all of my palettes out and just like figure that out. And it's like I do want to make sure I'm keeping some things that even if I'm not going to use them all the time, like oranges and like warmer things, even though I'm not super into warm things right now, like especially when it comes to like mattes. I feel like the eyeshadows I already have in my collection are more cool toned, and if I do feel so inspired to do a warm toned look, like a very warm toned look, I need to have things that are gonna like carry that a little bit better. I just had to keep that in mind. But I also like love the nuance in neutrals as well, so like, you know, there's different undertones happening, so I like to play with that. But I think I'm gonna finish all the more colorful shades before I move to the browns, because they're just a little bit easier for me to wrap my head around what I think is worth keeping and what's not. Here are the single shadows that I have decided that I would like to keep. I just want to do like a once over to see if I feel like I can condense anymore. Like for some reason, I feel like I have a lot of these aqua shades, but I swatched them all next to each other. And every time I came across something that I felt like was close to something else, if I didn't swatch them next to each other, I tried to make sure I swatched them next to each other. So I think what I want to do now is try to fit everything into these. I don't know if it's going to all fit in here. It's okay if they don't, but I do eventually want to get all of my singles into these. These are from Adept. They're the infinity stacks. So I'm going to do some organization. And guess what? I am watching one of my own videos because I'm entertained by myself. So I have some exciting news. Now that I've put them all away, these are the only 4 shades that I was not able to fit into my infinity stack, which is pretty excellent. I forgot that I put Ice Blink in here, so I'm really glad I opened it up. So basically all I need to do is I'm going to press these into some kind of pan, whether it's circular or square. I will figure that out. And then I think if I buy 1 or 2 more of the infinity stacks, it'll give me some room to grow and it will allow me to like kind of better organize them, because I would probably want all of my Cleona shades to be together, try to keep the circular pans together, try to, you know, I think that that's ultimately what I want to do. But I love that these have a clear top so that I can look into them and easily find them. So I am going to do a quick count of everything that I'm keeping, and then I will also count what I got rid of. I did not count these beforehand, so that's on me. That would have made my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to count. I kept 120 shades, and let me count how many I am getting rid of. I'm getting rid of 125 eyeshadows, single shadows, which means I have cut, oh wait, 126. So I cut it more than in half. And that feels so nice. So I have a feeling that some of you are probably going to have some big feelings about my choices that I made and probably feel crazy that I'm getting rid of so many Cleona shades. But I really feel like in this moment, and I need you to know that I've been filming this for almost 2 hours now, I really feel like the shadows that I've chosen to keep are special shadows, shadows that I'm going to really want to use in lieu of using an eyeshadow palette or feel like I'm gonna want to reach for them. And I'm just hoping that cutting out all of this excess is just going to make it better and easier for me to want to reach for those things. I'm just giving myself a little bit of a round of applause because I deserve it. Okay, cut. Oh my God. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Before you leave, I would like for you to go into my description box. I have linked to a family that needs help in Gaza. It's a GoFundMe, and I got that GoFundMe from Operation Olive Branch, which is doing work to help the people in Gaza get money directly to them to help their families get out. So please check that out down below before you leave the video. But if you are new here and you aren't subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe. Basically, the thesis I gave at the beginning of this video is the thesis of my channel. I want to help you and help myself build the habit of being more discerning about what we're buying and how much we are buying. It's not like always focused on buying, but that's kind of what the deal is. So I'm doing fashion content, fragrance content, and I also obviously do makeup content. My approach to shopping and things now is to buy really nice things that I know I'm going to use. And if they're more expensive, so be it. I just want to make sure that I'm buying things that I know I'm going to use as much as I can and love them for as long as I can. So that's like the goal here. So if that sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and share it with anyone who you think would like this video. I mean, I know declutters are pretty popular, but go ahead. That really helps me out. That'd be really nice. And if you are decluttering, let me know in the comments down below. I'm also on Patreon and I have channel memberships. You can check them out linked down below. I do some additional content over there. If you want to check it out, feel free, but there's no pressure to liking, watching, commenting. That's really great for me, and you don't need to do any more than that. So no pressure there. But that wraps up today's video. Remember to follow your hope and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth to doubt.